You and my dad are the same age, and y'all graduated high school, same class.
Well,
right?
actually, I graduated a year ahead of him.
A year ahead of him?
He's class 70 with Reuben Gann and Charles Harmon and Weinsberry in that group. And which will lead into, I'm sure you're going to ask me about athletics.
Yeah.
I try to stay out of them dynamics like they do about the Jordan and the LeBron thing. I try
debates.
to stay out because I know all sides, because believe it or not, I've coached everybody from Prentice all the way over to a little bit of RW. And then Brandon obviously played with Eton and Ryan up here. So
Been around
I try to stay out of them, as well as Bo was my quarterback. And, just obviously selfish, in my personal opinion, is if we had a Mount Rushmore, Mount Booker T, Mount Hornet, Bo would be on it. Because to me, he was one of the greatest athletes, not sliding earlier people, J.W. Lockett and Julius Pegues and some of those guys, but because I played with Bo, he was all-state in football, all-state in baseball. Probably could have been in basketball. He averaged 20 points, and he had a 50-yard field goal before they started the soccer-style kicking. And he was also the punter. He was probably one of the greatest athletes to come out of Tulsa in my lifetime.
Right.
But
to see it all.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I experienced playing with him and his demeanor. Probably if he had a little bit more push. A lot of kids don't understand the dynamics when you go to college. Them guys finish all that wine and dining you, and they're gonna treat you like some slaves until you figure you can help them pull a wagon. And a lot of our kids are not equipped to take that deal. They want all the hype and all that, and they don't know behind the scenes. You going somewhere where they got a bunch of Rockwallers and grubbers that say somebody going home, but it ain't gonna be me. And therefore, between Bo, Mark Brown, Thomas Grayson, I can go different names of high echelon guys that went and didn't stay because they didn't want to deal with that dynamics. And then the passion of, do you really want to play and use this as a catalyst, not only get your degree, but possibly do something else with it, maybe networking with it. And a lot of our kids are not ingrained, and I'm sure you go through it with your kids in talking to them about being gassed all up and thinking they're this, and say, you guys think you're working hard, you're not working hard. Not likely we be if you get a shot at college. I kind of help out also with Coach Muse down at Connors. Just
How long
a
that been
sidewalk.
going on?
Well, believe it or not, I'm kind of a outlet for him up here in the Tulsa area. In fact, I was involved with the y'all's young man Johnson,
Jeremiah,
and the one before him, Mason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was before my Edison time.
But also definitely Johnson, because he was calling me, and I said, I don't really know him like this. I need you to get over there, and I'm kind of their satellite coordinator, so for his kids.
Yeah.
Because they know I don't have a hit, and I'm trying to gas them up with Booker T kids, because most of them couldn't play down at the college level anyway. But as a kid, I think I have an opportunity, especially the demeanor, to be able to take all that cussing out and chewing out those college coaches. You better to college level, know.
It's different. I'll tell you what, when my experiences, you gotta love it to do it.
That's absolutely coming back to what I was talking about.
High school.
Bo and Mark and Thomas Grace and some of the other ones that have come back to Tulsa, and they use the expression, well, the coaches are punking me here at favorites. Well, the favorites they're gonna have gonna help them keep the $1 million jobs.
Yeah, man, it's a business.
No, you got. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't know the guy's name, but he's always giving information about the transfer pool and people, kids, talking about their offers and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them are not ready for what they're going to face so far as competing with the kids that come in, because they've accrued enough numbers, and they're going to shake the bag and see who's still in the bag that don't fall out. Yeah. And he was talking about this guy, I forget his name, it's on a podcast, and I send stuff out to different coaches about kids also with practice and where their status is on the team. They'll go home and lie when they know they're not working to the level of what the coaches is looking for.
Mm-hmm. But I got to say this while it's fresh on my mind. You made me think about it with your point you made a moment ago about not necessarily about valuing what you do have.
Right.
My dad told me when I don't remember what age he told me. He said, "But man, we didn't even know we were poor, and y'all come from the same era." And I think he explained an experience to me where it became evident to him that, okay, we're living a little bit below the line here, as I guess whenever he went across town. which was something that you just didn't do in that era. Can you identify with any of that?
Man, I grew up in an era that was still colored water fountains.
Yeah, that's wild.
When they had up there at Northland, where it's the remnant of a few shops up there, I think Tisdale's deal is at the very end, the east end. We had all kinds of shops and stuff, but they had a Piccadilly, and we had to go up there. I went up there with my dad. He took me at a young age, and I was part of a sit-in because they would hand the food outside the door, but you couldn't go inside Piccadilly. It's right here in North Tulsa, because a lot of the dynamics of our makeup of our community now, especially blacks, they understand that North Tulsa used to be predominantly white. McLean had one white student there when I was in class, and I graduated in '69. Now, it's transferred the dynamics from it, but now you have with gentrification, people are moving back. I don't know how many people blacks live in North Tulsa now. We live in the suburbs and what have you, and unfortunately, the understanding of the value of home ownership, man, I don't know if that's as prevalent, and I'm not indicting your generation, it might be below your generation, of kids who want to stay in apartments or lofts, because I got some nieces in Arizona and California, and they don't care about owning no home ownership. And you have a little bit more clout.
Good, the cost of living has something to do with that in some of those areas?
Well, cost of living, but here, the house I built in '88 over there off of Pine and Greenwood, which was an area that was predominantly black, but we had Latimer's back on the tail end, and we had all those black businesses, Latimer's, and you go down Greenwood. We had 3 movie theaters here in North Tulsa. We had some like 5 dry cleaners. We had pretty much almost anything you wanted, and I think to a certain degree that had a lot to do with the mechanism of folks thinking that we had gotten full of ourselves over, because we were turning the money over in our community. We had everything. You're going back to what you were talking about your dad, talking about walking. I live off of Apache and Peoria, and I walk to school every day. You talk to a kid now, I got kids in my neighborhood, and I stay maybe a block and a half from Carver. Their parents take them to school every morning. You talk to a kid about walking past a block, even a block. What's wrong with your car?
That's right. Now, in fairness to these parents today, do you think that it's any more or less safe to turn your kids loose to take off walking?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. I think because of the dynamics of the mean-spiritedness and the cavalier in a way, how crazy people drive, there's a fear factor somewhat of people letting their kids, walk to school. And I mean, we just had that recent Halloween, quote unquote. And I remember when we were kids, between, all of us trick-or-treating, walking through like again, you were talking about your dad, talking about poor. We didn't have much, but people would throw candy apples and they would throw ham sandwiches and all kinds of stuff in our bag. That's what we got for trick-or-treating.
Oh, you talking about a bare naked
yes.
wrap it?
Well, they would put
a
a piece of wax paper on it, and if they had a Band-Aid, they might tape it, and they throw it in your sack. Because everybody kind of knew each other, and if they didn't know you, we were all poor back then. Now, that old adage, when we had less, we had more, and I think it's a great statement, because now that we've had the opportunity to move where we want, work where we want, we've lost a lot of love and caring about each other. It shouldn't make any difference unless you're competing against each other. If you care about Eli and he cares about you away from the basketball court and what you're going through, kind of like even in church, which is going to transcend a lot of why the churches after COVID is such a reduction in membership and people attending, because they've gotten tired. Because if you don't see people that attend the church and the spirit they're supposed to have in giving, caring, sharing, and loving like Jesus Christ outside of the church, well, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm going to go ahead, man. I barely got it. And they talking about tithes and 10%, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not talking about, I'm just saying, I'm tying this all in about our community and our understanding. When I was up, my son lives in Upper Marlboro, Brandon does, and it's like 4 or 5 so-and-so in vans signs in their yard. Black men for so-and-so in vans. Man, I just got to live it. Not to say the other sector don't come and passionately recruit us during voting time, but if you understand the voting process and the political process, this was never designed for us to be a part of anyway. We're still listed in the state of Oklahoma as 3/5 of a man. I don't know if you know that. I asked Jabbar Shumate as well as Kevin Matthews, why don't y'all just totally get off the books? because at some point in time, it's right now dormant, but it can be reactivated. So why don't y'all totally get it off the books if it's not of any consequence? Should be like a stroke of a pen, but.
What type of responses do you get from those brothers, if you can share?
The response I got from Jabbar, he was working on it when he was in office. I even approached Senator Maxine Horner before she transitioned about it, and she was passionately but plugging along. But they cut so many deals once they get in there for a length of time that became less of a priority, and not understanding. At the end of the day, when they come get us, they ain't gonna just come get me. They're gonna get you too, And on the other hand, that's another reason why one of my big things, even doing this community activist and athletic consultant, is trying to enlighten kids best I can about the blessings that we do have, and it ain't always been this way. And you better have some short-term and long-term goals and figure this thing out. Like I said, I got two 44-year-old twins, and people ask me all the time, how your kids doing, Coach Ice? I say, still gone, and they're still paying their own bills. It was never meant for all these grown kids to be moving back in with their aunts, uncles, grandparents, and waiting for somebody to die because they can't pay their bills.
Hey.
And want to buy the weave, play PlayStation, and that might be why Shelly's going to be old maid, because, girls want to marry their fathers, and guys want to marry their mothers. And it's a dying breed of that kind of mentality because there's not a whole lot of training about morals and values in the household because the world is raising us now. Social media, music, and I'm not indicting them. I'm just saying when you take hands off on training kids the way they should go, then they're going to gravitate towards what's what.
Something's going to get them.
So. I don't know. I'm rambling. I know. I just wouldn't.
You hitting points though. You hitting points, and as they jump out at me, I'm like, okay, I got something to throw at you on that one. So when you talked about your twins and people ask you how they're doing, and the way you gave a status update on them is funny to me, and my mind went to this. Were you one of those parents that subscribed to that thinking that, hey, you got to get out of here when you're 18? Pretty much. Really?
In fact, when Brandon and Shelly were in high school, and Brandon was a little bit better basketball. He came through with Ryan Huff and Eton. And everybody thinks I had a relationship with Nate and John Lockett. I didn't have it like that with it. Brand had to figure out, I said, hey, you need to figure it out if you're going to do this basketball thing. Because I suddenly wanted him to play football because he would have been a roaring tight end and had hands, but his mother was adamant about this. So I said, well, if you're going to pursue it, but one thing we told both our kids, if you get into something, you're not going to quit. You're going to stay the course. And we're going to see how it does. And then when you finish it, at the end of that deal, then you make a decision. But my thing was, if you get involved, you got to figure out, I was trying to let him know about roles and anything in society. Figure out what you can do if you want to be on that court based upon all these monsters y'all got up here. Because, back during then, they probably could have staffed 3, 4, 5 schools. Our third team probably could have started for anybody in the state. And probably been in the state championship because you had Brian Nichols that didn't start. He was 6'9". You had Daniel Highshaw, whose daughter was out of union. This kid was probably, his son, I think, still playing at Kansas, at running back. We had some of the greatest athletes, and not just Booker T, because I can transcend all deals. I go back to your era back when I was in high school. You had Ron Douglas and the McMullen twins. And you had, what their name escaped me. Him and his brother played, and he was 6'8", 6'9". He called me, lives in Shawnee, went to Central.
Where they growing them at these days, man? They just sending them on back through the town.
And if they're growing them, they either going to suburban schools or I was talking to somebody. I was at Warner Saturday watching Langston and Connors play, and as a lady said, she had graduated from Douglas and taught at Millwood, and said the kid said Douglas now has a 6'8" or 6'9" kid. I don't know where it came from. Maybe you know about him.
Hey, I just saw.
I heard about, and then
but you know how winning does, man. It's attractive. People want to be a part of it if you got it going on.
As well as the mindset of if I don't have my way, if I'm not starting, the transfer stuff.
Yeah,
that's prevalent now. I know you guys deal with that.
Instant gratification. Yeah. And in fairness to some of them, I like to look at things from both angles. You do, I think, have to look at the situation, survey the landscape, and be like, okay, do I realistically have a shot at whatever it is I'm trying to achieve? And if the answer is no, then you gotta look abroad.
Well, see, I took a young man home, and you might remember his name last couple of years, Isaac Covington, that was out of Union. He was over here for 2 years. I took him home almost 2 years because he stayed with two different grandmothers, one out there by Apache Manor and one out there off of 48, because he was trying to stay here. His dad died in prison. Right. Probably one of the greatest athletes we've had in the last 10 years up here. He went out to Union. His mom got gassed up. People told her they were going to put in Section 8 housing and what have you, and that never happened. This kid stayed with the Rising family, slept on their couch for 2 years.
Right on.
But getting to your point about seeing it both ways, some kids out there, this kid led them in tackles his senior year, had something like 9 or 10 touchdowns, and in a semifinal game his junior year, I think he had 5 touchdowns against Owasso. My point being, some of the kids came to him because they looked at him, have transferred, and what do you think? Some of the juniors are asking him to say, so what do you think, Isaac, man, about Stanford? He said, well, hey, man, you got to do what's best for you, but there's somebody always coming at Union and Jinx and Wasso and Broken Arrow, and if you haven't played and you're not on the 2 deep, you might really look at your situation to what you just said. And he told them that, and you know what they told him told those kids last November? Say, do not anybody have any conversations with, they basically blanketly say, don't speak to Isaac. They cut him off. This guy put them on the map so far as different things out there, and he graduated early. He's at TU now. But my point being, they also shut him out. He didn't get any postseason awards from Union in their athletic banquet. And when you're talking about, you look at both sides, and I understand that because, say, at places where they have a lot of kids, probably y'all's place too, if you haven't played in a couple of years, if you feel like you can go to Hale or Webster somewhere and you can start maybe somebody, you can get some ink, you might have to do that.
That's true. And then, you know, these kids a lot of times, I don't like to say these kids because that's a generalization. Yeah. But many of them sort of are just not quite honest with themselves about where they are in their own development and in comparison to their counterparts.
They don't look in the mirror, man.
You got to do
that first. They don't put the work. I tell kids all the time, if you're not putting in the work after practice, you're not going to be able to improve. Yeah. I say you can maybe learn the plays and go through the drills,
yeah, that's team
but
time,
you're going to be at the same stage that you've been in. I look at some of the girls that whine up here about not playing, and I'm saying you haven't worked on your ball handling skills. I go to groups in fraternities and different things with some of them's granddaughters, and they want to say, hey, man, y'all hoes in my granddaughter. Your daughter's at home on the computer or on the Snapchat or Instagram. She ain't working on the house or shooting. Right. I said to play up here, if you got 4 returning guards, well, 3 returning and Kayla and even Bailey, Tisdale's granddaughter, 6'4".
Right.
Nobody has that gently at a girl best, but what's here?
Yeah.
Yeah, your dad can say he taking you all these trainings and what have you, but sometimes the kids don't really want it like that. Yeah. We're going through that with Lee's daughter. Ryan's a great kid, but Ryan's not like them other girls that was driven about basketball. You kind of want all of the things that come along with being recruited, but a lot of it is what the kid really wants to do ultimately.
Sweat equity, man.
Yeah,
you just can't skip that process.
Exactly.
And isn't it a trip that it seems like a lot of the more gifted kids sort of lack that work ethic, and then the ones who lack the natural skill, talent, and God-given
ability, work the hardest.
They work the hardest. I was one of those, you know.
Well, I was getting ready to say, let me give them to you over there at Central, because I remember back. Were you on the same team with was his last name Highshaw?
Ralph Highshaw?
Yeah.
He graduated in 2003, and I came into high school that fall.
Okay, you came after them.
Yeah.
Well, who was little Birmingham along with?
DJ, he was with me.
Okay, and the little left-handed was a Glacier?
Glacier, he was a year before me.
See, I'm
yeah, look at you. You there?
I knew the Birmingham. I'm in and out of the Birmingham house because I'm trying to keep Daddy Birmingham from jumping on coaches over there at Central. I was at a game when y'all played somebody, I think it was Coweta or somebody, and his dad had him take his shoulder pads off at halftime.
Like that, huh?
Yeah, we were here at the game because we were scouting the
This was our home field at the time, too.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's back when Keith Miller used to walk over, man, with a club and say, y'all get them signs off that fence. We share this deal, and so we had to take scissors and cut all them zip ties for all them people we sold banners and stuff to
Rest
sponsor.
in peace to the legend, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I go way back, so I went to school with Keith.
Yeah.
Down in North End. In fact, I played 1 year. with him before I tore my knee up down there at Northeastern. He's in the Hall of Fame down there. Great guy, great family guy. That had a big heart, man. 100 black men, and just for years, just working with kids. You know what he's done for Central. His baby, I don't know, was he living to see that stadium open over there at Central?
Whose baby?
That was one of his passions. He stayed on the service center about Tulsa Central Stadium.
I
was just wondering, was he alive to see it?
To see that?
The open.
I believe he was.
Because he was in a wheelchair his last 2, because he had a grandson that played up here, Jaden King.
Right. I'm fuzzy on the year that he passed.
Yeah, I am too.
Because I know
in fact, you know me, a lot of times I take pictures with kids because I'm real big on them, you know, draining and whatever they can get it. Go ahead.
No, I think he got out of here before.
I think he did too. That's what tugged at me.
Yeah.
Because I see Christian quite a bit.
Yep.
And I took a picture with Keith and Jaden on the track along with his other grandfather. I think we were up in Boylesville because I don't care where we played, he was there. I think any of his grandkids.
Yeah, he pulled up now.
Yeah, he was
and
there.
You're gonna
man.
hear him before you see him. Got that voice, baritone, baby.
And I used to pick at him. I said, Keith, you got a grandson up here? He said, so he's gonna make me pull a pistol out on you.
I love that, man.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, he's a good guy, man. I mean, guys that's tall, and him and Buddy Tate and some of them guys in the field for years, man. You know, as volunteers and you know, I'm right now. I'm brainstorming, trying to figure out how I can network these young coaches in to try to mobilize and getting some more teeth to be able to deal with this generation y'all dealing with and get out of their feelings about themselves. And more to the point, what we have to represent, if we're talking about pouring stuff into kids, you can't be blasted out with weed or alcohol and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying it's prevalent, but I'm just saying that certain things, if you're talking about leaning the kids about morals and values and character, that stuff doesn't change, man.
Yeah.
And
we got to do it first, though.
And then also getting the middle school. You guys don't have so much a problem at Edison, but Carmen Booker, the head coaches in football don't really get along. You know, so how are y'all gonna have a continuity of kids coming up here? Then you throw in a lot of administrators around the city. They don't endorse athletics, man. And I'm saying y'all not understanding that a lot of the morale and enthusiasm within these buildings comes from the athletic programs.
That's true.
And it set the tone with that. And when you devalue that, you know, a lot of these kids on social media, they just go home. A lot of our kids don't play outside anymore. That's almost non-existent anymore.
I loved it growing up, man.
Yeah, and they're again going back to what you said earlier, is just kind of the times too. It's kind of a dark time so far as how many people in your neighborhood, you might know people in your neighborhood, but in my neighborhood, because I built my house in '88, it's transitioned to a lot of young,
That was a good year, by the way.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh
I
yeah.
was born, baby.
Oh yeah.
You know, I had to say, I missed the opportunity to throw that in there the first
No,
time.
no, I'm glad you did, because I remember your dad being on top of the world, man.
Damn.
Him and that cap that he used to wear all the time.
My man.
So speaking of him, how is he doing?
Man, he's doing well. He's
Tell
doing
him
well.
I send my love, my
for
prayers,
sure.
man.
And he specifically told me to ask you this question because I was at his house, you know, visiting him and mom yesterday, and I said, hey, I got Coach Ice on tomorrow. I said, what's one question that I need to throw at him that only somebody from his era would even think to ask him? And he said, ask him about how Booker T football was before the days that y'all came through here.
Oh boy!
And got those 3 titles back to back to back.
Well, a lot of people, a lot younger than us, of the generation, they don't know we used to play over at Carver. That was our home field, and we had the bus over there. And our practice field was where the regular S.C. Williams Stadium was. There was grass.
Right.
And I went to Anderson. And
which was one of y'all's feeders at the time.
Yeah,
Carver and Anderson.
and we'd get through a little bit early. Elmer Thompson that owned Elmer's Barbecue. He and I forget the other gentleman's name. Stayed up on Cincinnati. They were our coaches, and because you had volunteer guys even way back then. But we would lay on, there was a little lip hill, and we'd watch them practice. And back during that days, man, before we got to high school, all those coaches had paddles. And we didn't have lights out there in the practice field. And when that sun go down, it sounded like the 4th of July out there, man.
Oh, no.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, corporal punishment.
Laying them licks on you.
Yeah, one time we were watching a practice, and I think it's a guy named Dickie Wynn who was electric, kind of one of those slot-like guys, all that shaking, baking, that stuff, kind of like a little Birmingham.
All right. Shifty with it.
Yeah, and he had on the back of his, he'd wrote in magic mark on the back of these white practice pants, "Kiss My," and had an arrow pointing to his behind.
Yeah.
Man, those coaches beat him mercilessly. They probably should be in Leavenworth for what they did to that kid. And we had
the statue up.
Yeah, and you know what? Williams was coaching up here then, and we had all, and see, Ronnie went to, I think, Anderson too. And we had all said he was a class behind me with Harmon them, but
he went to Anderson.
And he said we had all said, man, we ain't going up there playing for those crazy coaches. And what is Art retires, and we said, happened in Puerto Rico, was he become the dean of students up here? So but they had pals in the building too.
Yeah.
And
I remember the stories.
Before we came, I remember my dad taking me over to Old Carver Stadium when Lester Armington and Glenn McKinney and some of those guys played. And my dad would drop me off. I'd walk from my grandmother's, which over there off of Pine, and used to be Dunbar, was up there on Pine. And I'd walk to the stadium, and they'd give me 50 cents, and it was 25 cents to get in, and it was 25 cents. They had to call a guy called the Skin Man. And those little, what do you call them, wax paper deals that they put fries in at churches and where.
Yeah, they put them in baskets.
They would put skins in there and put barbecue sauce, hot sauce, what have you. Mm-hmm. And they were like nickel a bag. And I might have 4 or 5 bags of skins, and I wouldn't have money to get in. And so years ago, the coaches, I was pretty good size, even in middle school, elementary school. They'd give me a towel, I'd throw it over my shoulder, and I'd run in with the team like it was a training. Man, I got beat half to death from my coach. But you're embarrassing us over there. I gave you money to get in, and they'd see me standing on the sideline when he'd come to pick me up.
Right. So how many times did you get away with that before they finally got you?
Probably about 3 or 4 times because
you ran that play all the way up.
I'm bragging to people with how'd you get them skins?
Coach,
you pay it costs to get in. And I said, man, y'all ain't got the hook. I didn't say hook. Well, y'all don't know folks like but more of back during that time also on Thanksgiving, Carver and Anderson used to play over there at Carver. It was kind of like Douglas and Millwood game, the Soul Bowl. Mm-hmm. They would fill that Carver Stadium up, man. It was kind of an event in North Tulsa. And we didn't have food trucks, but people had them tables with tablecloths, and people were selling fried chicken and different things that the health department, they wasn't as prevalent back then.
FDA would shut it down today.
I mean, if people didn't cook for Thanksgiving, they'd go over to that game and get food.
See, that's community right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That. We've lost a lot of it, and obviously, it's kind of like even up there in D.C. where Howard is, the gentrification and what have you. When Brandon went to Howard, you couldn't pay a lot of the other races to be close to Howard. Now, these folks is walking through there with dogs and tell them, if the dogs take a dump, if y'all don't like it, y'all need to transfer it. Telling the students that. When I was up there about 3 years ago, I went to the cafeteria at Howard, and it was 2 white girls came in there with MAGA hats on. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around and say, oh, this is going to be ugly here. And this before that MAGA hats got really, really prominent like they are now. And those kids got run up out of there, but I'm just saying, just the mindset of how things, and we were talking earlier about the divisiveness that this guy has created. Mm-hmm. But, in having conversation, you just think about it. It's how can people live, well, basically just like him. It's been dormant, that feeling. You look at why are there so many red states in this country? People want to go back to Jim Crow and slavery, and I hate to make this a racial, presentation from me, but I mean, it's kind of ugly because you're not looking at people we can agree to disagree, but how can we get to middle ground so we can be successful? Mm-hmm. But there again, going back to that how this thing was set up with our founding fathers, we were never supposed to be participants like we are now. We're 3/5 of a man, and it's the reason why they had poll tax and after slavery, sharecropping. And how are you they're going to give you some land to tend your own crops, but you work all the way to dark tending theirs. That's just a smoke and mirrors, like they're doing now. But not to drift into politics. Back to what you were talking about, community. And I mean, it was just a warm. We could walk everywhere, man. I used to walk from.
People probably knew you.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know them.
And they knew my parents.
They knew your people.
And it was one of those deals that if you were cutting up or you doing something, it would beat you on. They might beat you. They might give you a whooping.
I call the tail end of that. Tail end of that. Like you keep it clean because somebody else could get you.
But you go back to it, man. There again, when you're saying earlier that we didn't have much and we didn't know because everybody was poor, but we had love and we had caring for each other, man. They didn't care about. So you live in, well, nobody lived in Broken Arrow because we couldn't move around like that then. We were condensed in North Tulsa. Now, like I said earlier, I don't know who lives in North Tulsa now. There ain't a whole lot of us live here because most people live outside of North Tulsa because different dynamics of it, what have you. I used to have a house out in Turley, 62nd Street North, and I drive by there periodically just seeing it's kind of boarded up. And what's happening, these folks that's coming back, they tell me it's a conglomerate of people, some name brands, I ain't gonna throw their name out so I'll get sued, but they're buying a property in North Tulsa and then they're building it up and they're not re-renting it or whatever to us. So
when it comes to homes, okay, so I bought a house, my first home, my biggest adult purchase, January 5th of this year, which is my man's birthday. You know what I'm
Congratulations.
saying? Smooth's birthday. And so now,
he's
thank
a
you.
Smooth?
Yeah, that's Landon Smoke. Yeah, that's
Ralph?
That's Ralph's son. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go way back with that deal
You know
too,
what I'm
man.
saying? But
Your aunt's still up in D.C.? She used to be with a dealership up there for years. So I still got her card. I was gonna call and say, can you do the hookup?
Nah, see, look, you've been getting hooked up since the skins.
Over there on the
game, right?
Xanthus, man.
But here's what I wanted to throw at you though. The reason that the biggest reason that I wanted to buy a home, because I've lived in some apartments when I was moving around in my coaching.
You do until you can do better.
Yeah, but I wanted my life to look a certain way, like a 35-year-old man. But I know there are some other pluses to being a homeowner, and you touched on it briefly earlier in our conversation. So, man, what's some of the positives besides just the look of it for a young man like myself being a homeowner?
It's the value deal. If you have home ownership, and I'll give you an example. When you have home ownership, and if you have rental properties next to you and people that are not plugged in, immature, and they gravitate towards, and some of them are habitat houses. It's supposed to be one family and about 5 families move in.
Oh, yeah.
They will park all over the grass, the appreciation of home ownership and value in it, man. You have a lot more respect for property and other people's property if you own the home versus if you rent. You don't care. You pulling across, and you probably seen it. People pulling across yards, maybe houses in your neighborhood. Maybe the driveway isn't accommodating enough for all the people are there, but it gives you a value system, and it also gives you, if you have offsprings, you have kids, they can aspire to that because you kind of can control. Obviously, you got taxes and all that other stuff going on, but in an apartment, you don't have no control over if they're going to go up on those rents, or if there's going to be a non getting something, and you had to work for it, and so you value it, which translates into we were talking earlier about athletics. If you're given given a spot on a team, what have you, number one, your teammates not going to respect, especially if your coach's pet and you know they ain't putting in the work, or if the kids don't have a spot, but they whine and complain because they haven't worked to get that benefit of that, or some time. Maybe not a starter, but you gain being a favorite with a coach if you do the right things and they feel like they can trust you. Going back to the home ownership, I know, like I said, we built and I had misgivings when we were going to build a house, because back then we had to buy the lot first because they had leveled all behind old Latimers and all that stuff. Carver was basically the only thing standing over when we built a house. And I said, man, I remember all those black folks that lived there. I hate to build a house. And my wife said, hey, if you don't, some of these realtors are going to come in here and scoop it up and they're going to build houses. So we were, I think, the third person to build our houses in that complex off of Pine and Greenwood. And just the whole process of building it or buying, I say if it was already pre-existing, you just have a satisfaction of hey, I've taken the steps, I've grinded. Maybe, you got a mortgage and some other things, but you have a sense of worth that's greater than, to me, because I've stayed in apartments and rental houses, I never felt like it was mine or it was something that I had to grind to get to, but now just a sense of accomplishment. And you can pass that on to your kids that, hey, you do this, even though now everything, people is a microwave deal. They want it now, you know. I ain't got time for that. If I work at Dollar General, I want to be making $15 an hour starting off. And how many breaks I get? And, you know, for years I ushered out at Oral Roberts and try to get kids out there. And I don't know how many kids got let go because they couldn't conform to getting off those phones, putting them earpieces in, like the supervisor, owner of that company couldn't see them over there listening to music or talking on their phones with those earpieces. And my point being, coming back to this ownership, is there's steps to this thing in acquiring and building and gaining, you know, a base. You know, I tell Brandon and Shelley, when going back to them, you were talking about them being raised, me and my wife were in sync. You know, a lot of families, the husband and wife, they're not in sync on kid raising. And we told them, say, if you guys don't get scholarships, y'all going to TCC, you're going to have jobs, you're going to help pay bills, and you're going to still have a curfew. And my
that last one was a deal breaker. No, we ain't doing that. Huh?
No, and they were on the deal, and they were blessed. Shelley, like you say, she really wasn't a basketball player, 6'1", rough and what have you. In fact, she actually replaced Keith's daughter as a freshman up here. And it was a realism with that family. You know how Keith's family used to roll Christian and Deborah Walker, Deborah Gatewood, Mike Gillum, all them guys, Gage. And they were brutal on Shelley. But Shelley provided what Butch needed at that time of being rough, being able to shoot free throws, rebounding, and not having to have the ball because you had a lot of Rockweiler guards that weren't going to pass through it anyway. But point being is when Marlo Odom was at TU, and I have on film right now, the Naval Academy came to my house and offered Shelley, and Shelley's busy asking them, do y'all have fraternities and sororities up there? And I'm saying, Shelley, what is it, 4 years after you finish, you got to get them? I said, you got to work somewhere. And I'm thinking the Naval Academy, she could have been anywhere, but it worked out. She wound up going to Alabama and A&M. Brandon went to Howard, but I'm going back to instilling them that, hey, you got to grind. And so from then, they said, well, we already know what their mindset is. We go back to us, we got to work and pay bills, so we might as well figure this out. And so going back to, even if you just get, a lot of these people get hung up on D1. It's just getting your foot in the door wherever you go to school.
Yeah, and the next level is the next level.
And networking.
I saw that.
Because it's monsters, and anyone, man, I'm down at Connor Saturday, it's like 3 or 4, 6'9", 6'10" guys. Yep. And Mills just signed him. He has a whole new team from that team that went to the national tournament last year. In fact, his best player coming back, this Hammer kid from Westfield, he's at NEO now. See? They gassed his mama up and probably slid a coupon to get free booze or something.
Allegations.
Allegations. So he's gone. So he has. But my point, going back to when you was talking about home ownership, I hope I haven't rambled too much, is it just gives you a sense of achieving and that maybe some of the things that your dad and your mom poured into you, man, I guess I went too far, of course. I might have, all of us have drifted in our courses.
You always make your way back, though.
And so with the training of listening, I'm real big on telling these kids right now they're not trying to answer. Tell your mom and dad you love them, even when they make you mad. Because hopefully you won't be there all your life. And I used to do a deal up here, tax class, because I have a formal background with the Treasury Department, Internal Revenue Service, and I taught a class of
like
tax.
You said, Internal Revenue Service, instead of saying the acronym, because that's tricky.
Yeah, I already know. In the black community, you don't say IRS. You say Internal Revenue. Most of the time, I just say Treasury Department. People say, what? What is that? Well, it's the same thing with Shelley and Brandon and Lyson. When I say that, they say, what? What does she do, Coach Ice?
Don't even worry about it.
No, and she's making a market. But anyway, I had on one side of the ledger, what you make, and we'd help them set up their W-4s. How much they were going to make an hour. I think we set up $8.50, $8 an hour. Set up their W-4s, how much withholding they wanted, how many allowances. Transfer that stuff over to the W-2, and they start squealing before I even finished the deal about what was FICA and all that other stuff. And on the other side was all that stuff that young people think that they're going to get when they get out of school at whatever point. the cars, the apartments, whatever it is, the Jordan tennis shoes or Nike tennis shoes, and
It don't just happen.
And maybe hair stuff, allowance stuff for hair, earrings, jewelry. And so we go back over this. I said, here's your net right here. Every 2 weeks, every once a month. And almost without fail, I had kids squeal and say, Coach Ice, you can stop right now. I'm staying with my parents. Because they figured out, if you don't build your base to try to improve what you can bring in, this stuff costs.
Yeah.
And it's going up, and that's what they're making a big issue of about the economy, inflation. When this other fellow was in office, he inherited the predecessor's economy, and he was the worst. He had folks that had money.
Right.
In fact, that's why Musk and all those guys are pouring all that money and trying to get it back in.
Not necessarily the common man. Is that
yes, exactly, exactly.
Well, now you said something, and I got 2 more things I want to throw at you. You definitely want to respect the time, but you said something a while ago, and it sparked a thought, and I'm gonna shoot this at you. So I think we sort of laugh and we joke and we share stories about how our households kind of were when we were younger, and how the village was, and how you get checked by anybody in your village, whether it was in your home or outside of the home. We tell the horror stories about what discipline looked like, but did you always know and feel love from your parents?
It's
I know you come from an era where it wasn't.
Well, I had an alpha male in my household,
right
and trust me, I'm right now. I'm blessed to still have him around. But believe it or not, a lot of the men, because they weren't shown love by their fathers, they were kind of hard line. The mothers, they disciplined, but they worked, and it was at corporal brutal kind of when they did get at you. I knew he cared. But I'll share this one story. When I played for Booker T over in New World with the old Hornet Stadium, I had a cousin named Rex. You might know Rex Stevenson, maybe not. Fred Stevenson's brother, Rex, and Rex is bigger than I was, but he was a brainiac. He wasn't really no football player. Man, I could blow things up and what have you. And my dad didn't even have come to my games, but it was always the negativity. Boy, I saw you getting your ass kicked, and then I would go over to my grandparents' house, which my mom's family had two businesses: Page's Auto Salvage, that used to be out here on Apache, and there was Page's Auto Body and Fender, where that railroad track that's now sealed in as a walking track. There used to be a railroad track through there, and he had a body and finish shop, and they would come over there after the games. And I mean, Rex might get one play. If we beat somebody by 50-some points, he's one of those guys that got in maybe a minute, 2 minutes of the game, and they would glorify this. And I know they were trying to uplift him because his father was kind of dealing with some post-army deals, war deals, and had that going on. But I felt like, hey, can anybody give me some support? And I mean, there again, it might have been their way of saying, hey, you give you too much of that, then you'll fall off, you'll stop working. But to your point about love, my mother probably, in fact, I tell people from my church, I'm an elder at my church, and from the podium when I'm worship leader, I said, thank God for my mom. I love my dad. And he goes to that church and he'll roll his eyes at me. Yeah. And if I tell my dad right now I love him, say, boy, is you sugar? He would tell, because men just didn't express themselves like that back when he's 93 now, but he let me know he did care about me, and I felt like he had pieces of love, but I didn't feel it like I tried to express it to Brandon. In fact, probably to a fault. He calls too much and want to know, say we ain't checked in. Said, what do you mean check in?
Check in, right. Yeah. Well, you did it a little bit differently than your dad.
I drew on. I was thankful to God of all the things he poured into me, work ethic and ability to navigate and how to speak with people and be careful. That tongue is a wicked thing. Slow to anger, slower to speak, and you probably have to do that in coaching too sometimes with parents.
Yeah.
And he poured a lot of values in me along with my grandfather, who was one of the first blacks to own land in Wagner County, and instilling me about voting thing. But to the question, I hope I'm not rambling too much, that
no, you good.
I got love from him, parts of it because it's let me be around him and I was able to model a lot of what he was doing. But by the same token, I didn't get the agape like we try to give to our kids. And maybe sometimes a fault, maybe that's why they're a little bit soft. Brandon and Shelly, not so much soft, it's just that they're too clingy, but that's a good thing because you have some families, the kids, they don't even check in. I did Meals on Wheels.
They leave home, that's it.
Yeah, I did Meals on Wheels for like 30 years in North Tulsa, and it was one of the most draining things I ever had is the people didn't want me to leave, and I know I had all these people. I went as far as 66th Street North, west, I go to Osage Drive, east, I think, to Sheridan, and I would start at Apache. And so I had a pretty big deal, and one of the most draining things is when people would have kids right here in Tulsa that would never come by and see the kid. I mean, they're the senior person, it was a mother, father, or grandmother, and that was really draining. So to the point, bringing it back to about love, I felt it somewhat, but it was skewed because his father, who was hardline, he was more brutal than my dad was, and so I know he basically exhibited what he got. And in fact, he left home when he was 15 because he was raising a pig. And to this day, we still can't come to agreement. Daddy, you were raising a pig on Grandpa. And there was like 12 of them in the family. 14 totally in the household.
Them big old families. That's where we come from that, man.
Yeah, and then my dad was raising a pig on it. But I said, that, and when he sold the pig, he gave him half. And Daddy got mad because he said he should have gave him. I said, Daddy, there's 14 people in that household. If you were managing that household, you lucky you got that half. And so he walked to Tulsa. They called a ride with a milk truck. Back then, that day, they had milk trucks.
Right.
Along with ice. I don't know if y'all know about the ice wagon. I didn't wear them today, but I took the Jordan basketball. My daughter kills me about this. And it had some ice tongs. And if you ever look at some of the stuff I have on my shirts, it's got an ice tong with a Jordan bill.
What you got going on, Coach?
Boy, Shelly gets so mad because she's in branding and license marketing. And that's a trademark deal. But I say, Shelly, I'm local. Michael Jordan ain't worried about me down there. But it's got a blocker. If you ever see me again, and I got something up on the about Jordan logo, it generally got a block of ice with those ice chunks. I'm looking for
it, and I plan on seeing you again. That's
and in fact, if I can remember, because you're in green now, I wanted to do red in case you go back there, but make you a green shirt. What are you, like a X, 2X?
X. Yeah, you got a good eye.
XL.
Hey, wow. And I'll tell you what, to that the gall a kid gotta have to leave home at 15, please. I didn't have nothing figured out at 15, you know. But Coach, man, listen, it hit. We finally hit that time where I gotta cut out of here because we got practice.
Yeah, you got practice.
And I can talk to you for another.
And Dutch with Creed, you tell him I send my love and tell him I want that lawnmower back. When you get out there, but no, man, I appreciate you young lions, man.
Yes, sir.
Anything I can do, man, on my end, I don't have a whole lot, don't ask for no money, but if you need me to come out, or you need me to help you with some kid. Right. I talked to a young lady last night, at our church yesterday, Jacob still. She's bought over there next to Bigelow's. There's an old fire station. She's renovating for special needs kids. And so we're going to be plugging in with her, and I help out with Be Heard, the mobile shower that goes around with the homeless guys around the city. Just wherever I can plug in, man. So, you know, I love you guys as your dad, man. I love him to death. I go back to his class, him and Harmon and Gann and Andrew. And I think Andrew just died, Anderson. He was in that class. They had a special class. Probably one of the greatest athletes that ever played in the city is John Winesbury. Turned out being Nuruddin. I think Kashif wound up playing 2 years over at Central. Kashif probably could have been a great one, but he was just kind of, you're getting that dynamics of love and not expressing it to your kids, and he was caught up into that. But I appreciate you guys, man. Like I said, if anything I said was worth anything, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. My wife don't let me talk very much at home, so
get it all off today, huh?
No, but I'm blessed. I got them 44-year-old twins, and just blessed. You know, they've gone on. I'll tell Shelly. Try to get you some Duke gears. You know, she's a branding and license director at Duke University, and Brandon was a former.
Creed love that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.